On a hot, dry day in June 2002, at the age of 61, Bill Smith rode across a high pasture in southeastern Wyoming with a string of young cowboys behind him. The cowboys sang songs, told jokes, gesturing gently with their hands, holding their reins loosely so they draped in a soft arc to the horses' mouths. 70,000 acres surrounded them in patches of dusty gold and sage. In the distance, 100 head of Angus and Charolais speckled the plain. The cowboys had been riding all day, running for miles at a stretch, racing, playing grab-ass, trying to get each other bucked off. The horses were green 2-year-olds being ridden for the first time. At week's end, the horses would be returned to pasture till the fall, when they'd be sold. Having been ridden and trained to accept a halter, bridle, saddle, and rider, they'd command a premium at auction. The buyers would be horsemen, dude ranch owners, gentlemen farmers, East Coast bankers, anyone who fancies a ride in the woods on Sunday. The cowboys crossed the plain like a band of disorderly cavalry, and above them the clouds were blown out across the sky as if on a sheet of glass, all hovering flat-bottomed at the same altitude. It was Tuesday, well, maybe Wednesday. No one was keeping track. The cattle that dotted the pasture brought no real money. They barely paid for their own feed in a good hay year, and cost money in a bad one. The colts would bring around $1,500 each, just slightly more than the cost of raising them. The boys were working for free, for the privilege of riding with Bill Smith. They considered it their summer vacation, room and board in exchange for a hard day's work. When the week was up, they'd go back to shoeing horses, riding the rodeo circuit, or studying agriculture. Bill would go back to his ranch where he'd focus on his own herd of horses. As he rode, Bill looked around, his hands stacked one on top of the other on the saddle horn. "I wonder what the poor people are doing today," he said to the horses, to the sky, to his brother, and to the young boys who were following reverently in their footsteps. The boys shrugged and snickered and rode on. The only one among them who wasn't poor was the man who owned the land. But riding across this pasture on a weekday, they all considered themselves rich. They, the men and boys who lived in double-wide or out of their pickup trucks or in employers' bunkhouses, think anyone with an office job or a shift boss or a timesheet is poor. It's the worst kind of life they can imagine. Bill Smith is first to admit that a man can't make a living as a cowboy anymore. But in the same breath, he'll declare that people will always want horses. There'll always be a market for horses, no matter how industrialized our culture gets. And since he was a kid, this is what he dreamed his life would be. When I was a boy, he said, I thought if you weren't a cowboy, you just were underprivileged. I couldn't understand why anybody would want to be anything else.